Hey there fellow spell slingers, it's Blue here at Blue Bears Games, and today's video will be my upgrade guide for the Timey-Wimey Universes Beyond Doctor Who Commander Precon. Before I get to today's video, I want to first take a moment to let you know that if you'd like to help support my channel, you can do so in the following ways. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, share any of my content on your socials so other people can discover it, and or watch some of my many other videos yourself. In addition to that, if you're interested in ways that you can help support my channel monetarily, please read the description of this video, and there you will find a myriad of options for what you can do to help me keep this channel going. Anything that you can do to help is greatly appreciated, and I thank you for it. Now with that out of the way, let's begin. As is always the case when I do these guides, I will show you the cards that I would recommend removing first, and then I'll show you the ones that I would add back in to help make this deck play a little better. In the unboxing video, I mentioned that I wanted to give this deck a clear victory path while keeping the suspend and time counter themes, and I believe I did that while also adding another interesting little fun interaction on top of that. For that reason, I'll be keeping the commanders as the 10th Doctor and Rose Tyler for this guide. So let's get to it, and I'll start by showing you what I would take out. To get this deck to where I believe it would function better, I would remove Exotic Orchard, Temple of Enlightenment, Temple of Triumph, Temple of Epiphany, Temple of the False God, Talisman of Creativity, Talisman of Conviction, Mind Stone, Astrid Peth, Adipose Offspring, RMS Titanic, Coward Killer, Run for Your Life, The Girl in the Fireplace, The 11th Hour, Psychic Paper, TARDIS, and Wedding Ring. That's 18 cards in total that I have recommended removing. None of them really advanced much of a theme, and the lands I suggest removing are just not good, so I'll be replacing them with much more useful ones in just a few moments. What I'm about to show you are 18 cards that I believe will help strengthen the suspend and time counters theme, and hopefully add a more streamlined path to victory with a token-making sub-theme. Now, before I do show you what I would recommend adding back in, I want to explain to you this fun little interaction with the suspend mechanic using Cascade and Discover mechanics. Since both Cascade and Discover allow you to cast a spell that you exiled without paying its mana cost, if you end up exiling a card that has no mana cost, not zero, but no actual mana cost, you get to still cast it immediately, bypassing the need to suspend it. Keep all of that in mind as I show you what I would recommend adding back in. I'll start by showing you 3 lands from Lost Caverns of Ixalan: Hidden Cataract, Hidden Courtyard, and Hidden Volcano. Do you see why I had to first tell you about the interaction of Cascade and Discover with suspend cards now? All 3 of these lands are exactly the same, but just add a different color of mana to your mana pool. They all allow you to discover 4, which is a slightly upgraded version of Cascade, and should lead to some fun shenanigans. The next 3 cards that I'm going to show you are part of the other half of the equation, and are also fixed versions of some of the most powerful cards in the game. They are Mox Tantalite, Lotus Bloom, and Soul Talisman. All 3 of these have no mana cost and must be suspended unless you flip it over from a Cascade or Discover trigger. Then you get to cast it for free. It's not game breaking, but it is a fun thing to do to gain access to fixed versions of a Mox, Black Lotus, or a second copy of a Soul Ring. Next, I want to show you 3 creatures that I would add that all deal with time counters differently. The first one that I'm going to show you is called Chronozoa. Apparently, the Vanishing ability uses time counters. I didn't know that until yesterday's unboxing. Chronozoa is an interesting design to say the least. If it survives long enough to see all of its time counters removed, it splits into 2 copies of itself, which both of those in turn can split again, and so on and so on. In the right build, possibly this one, this card could get out of hand pretty quickly. I'm not sure if any of you have ever watched the Hellboy movies, but it's kind of like the creature called Samael. You know, the hellhound that's summoned with the phrase, where for each one of him that falls, two shall arise. Yeah, it's kind of like that. The second creature that I want to show you is called Wild Mage Sorcerer. This guy allows you to cascade repeatedly, assuming you can keep casting cards every turn from exile. Gee, I wonder if this deck can do that. And the third and final creature that I'll recommend is called Jorah of the Get-To. Jorah is sort of like a second Secret Commander here, but it also bounces off of the 10th Doctor quite nicely. Simply pay 2 mana to suspend for a higher mana cost card, and remove 3 of those counters with the Doctor. Yeah, it's 9 mana to do it, so if you had a way to create a bunch of mana, that would help. I wonder if I added anything to do that with. Anyway, moving on to the instants and sorceries. First up is Ancestral Vision. This is yet another fixed version of one of the most powerful cards in the game, Ancestral Recall. It's also another card with no mana cost, so if you cascade or discover into it, you get 3 cards immediately, which could prove quite useful. Card number 2 for this section is Throes of Chaos. This is a reusable spell that cascades for you at the extra cost of what's probably a dead land in your hand thanks to its retraceability. The third card that I'll show you for this section is called Rousing Refrain. While unfortunately you have to rely on your opponents having a bunch of cards in their hand, this combined with the 10th Doctor could possibly give you that mana that I was talking about just a few moments ago. To get the most benefit out of this card, you will need an opponent to have 8 cards in their hand, but this is Commander after all, so that shouldn't be too hard to come across. And the fourth and final card that I'll recommend for this section is called Doomscar. I felt that this deck needed a little more removal, and this has Foretell, which means you can cast it from exile if need be, which synergizes with a few of the other cards in this deck. Next up, I'll show you 2 enchantments that I felt would help this deck quite a bit. First, I'll show you a card called The Lost and the Damned. When casting things that were suspended, or off of a Cascade or Discover trigger, they are considered cast from exile, so this is a way to get free 3/3 dudes on the board. This deck will win by combat damage most likely, so this should help give you a decent board state, and the tokens it makes are actually a tad bigger than what most things create. The other enchantment is a card that I've liked since it was spoiled, called One with the Multiverse. It's a little expensive to cast, but what it does is actually really helpful. Essentially, it gives you access to an extra card that if you play, just gives you access to even more cards. It's almost like having an extra card or 2 in your hand, and that could be game-changing. The last card that I'll show you before I show you the combo is a Planeswalker whose name I may mess up, called Quintorius Cand. The static ability alone will give you a way to possibly win with, while the 3 activated loyalty abilities all help advance the themes of the deck. Creating tokens that could possibly be a win con for you, discovering 4, and then giving you yet another way to cast cards from exile are all useful for this build. Now this is where things get really fun. I've got a combo to show you that can either really piss everyone off, or just stun the rest of the table depending on how it plays out. Let me show you the combo, and then I'll explain. We start with Cage Stewart, who creates a creature token whenever you put 1 or more time counters on a permanent that you control. Then we add Soul Tether Golem, who says whenever another creature enters the battlefield, put a time counter on it. The thing about these 2 cards together is that this is a loop that will end the game in a draw, which is why I say it will piss people off. Spending all that time to play a game just to end in a draw, for some reason, pisses a lot of folks off. Luckily, I have a card for you that won't make the game end in a draw, Impact Tremors. Now, with all 3 of these cards on the board, the loop will instead slowly drain all of your opponent's health totals to 0, which should impress folks just a little. I mean, how many times can someone say that they won because of time counters specifically? I don't know about you, but I'd be a little impressed. If you want the complete explanation of how this combo works, click on the link that just popped up at the top of your screen. Now, as a bonus, I have an honorable mention combo for you. The reason this isn't the main combo that I showed you is because one of the cards is a little pricey. This combo uses the 10th Doctor, Chronozoa, and the pricier Mana Echoes to win the game. It does this by giving you infinite colorless mana, infinite creature tokens, infinite death triggers, infinite enters the battlefield triggers, infinite leaves the battlefield triggers, and infinite sacrifice triggers. If you'd like to see how this works and all of the steps, click on the new link that just popped up at the top of your screen right now. Not only is that combo a little more pricey, but it's also a little more involved and needs a little more setup. So rather than me trying to explain it to you and you having to rewind over and over to understand how I explain it, I figured that link will be a better option, and then you can ask any questions that you may have in the comments, and I'll do my best to clarify anything that's needed. And there you have it, folks, my upgrade guide for the Timey-Wimey Universes Beyond Doctor Who Commander Precon. While everything that I just showed you might not make this Precon a top-tier deck, it will help make it better overall and a hell of a lot more fun to play. Let's be honest here, this deck uses a funky and less often used mechanic, so it probably won't win you games on a consistent basis, but it does look like a blast to play. You'll definitely do things that you've either never done before, or have done maybe a couple of times before. Basically, take it for what it is, a deck to have fun with. Not every game has to be about winning. It does, however, have to be about the gathering. Well, folks, that's all I've got for you today. Thanks for watching, and if you're looking for more stuff to watch, please browse my playlists, as I'm sure you'll find a lot more of my videos that you'll like. Don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel so you can be notified every Friday when I release new content. Have a nice day, and I hope to see you real soon.